Deer range widely across the world today, in large parts because of human interference and introductions to places they would otherwise never realistically reach, though in the habitats they are found in naturally, they are a highly abundant and common group of animals. This tracks well into the past, and deer, known by their scientific classification of cervids, were just as prevalent back then, and some species, in many ways, were quite unlike what is alive today. One of these deer, and a most unusual one at that, is Candiacervus, an extinct genus of deer that was native to Pleistocene Crete in the Mediterranean, which has a few different morphotypes, 8 known in total, which all coexisted together. Their different sizes meant that they would have fed on different plant types, and so through the clear adaptive radiation they underwent, there was likely very little competition between them all. The island of Crete, off of the coast of Greece, has been isolated since about 5.3 million years ago, when the dried out Mediterranean Sea refilled, gaining its modern shape in the Pleistocene after tectonic uplift. Deer are pretty good swimmers, and appear to have reached the island by about 300,000 years ago, with them diversifying quite a bit, similar to what happens in roughly the same region to the older genus Hoplite and Meryx, which diversified in a similar way. Due to the small size of Crete, the animals that arrived underwent so much anatomical modification from the strong endemism and variety that followed, that it's still pretty unclear as to what their original ancestors were, and if they were all descended from a single colonisation event, or multiple staggered arrivals. They were traditionally considered to be related to the large Megaloceros, the misleadingly named Irish elk, with some even regarding them as a subgenus, though more recent research has found them to be closer to fallow deer than they are to them. Their distinctiveness from one another, having a very rapid diversification, has led to the differing body plans being described as egomorphs, a difference in the form of animals that distinguishes populations of a genus and or species that have become reproductively isolated recently in the same local environment, something which is seen today and most well known about amongst the gnolls. The smallest of these animals is C. Bropillophorus, which are the most notable and intriguing of them all, standing up to 40 centimeters tall when fully grown, weighing about 28 kilograms, around the weight of a musk deer, and having proportionately short legs, looking like the deer version of a dachshund. Their stockiness appears to have convergently evolved to occupy the same niche as wild goats do elsewhere, with them being better able to clamber over steep rocky terrain to eat vegetation, often tough and prickly in the case of Crete. Their antlers are especially unusual, up to 77 centimeters long, looking like either hockey sticks, tuning forks or spatulas, and are very simple in their structure, only having a single small spike at their base. The far ends of them are wider and rounded, and have been described as club-like, though their long shape and size makes it apparent that they probably wouldn't use much for fighting and tussling like another deer, and instead seem to be more for just show and visual display instead. The other members of the genus were quite different in size and in antler shape, with the biggest members getting up to 1.6 meters in height and weight of up to 245 kilograms, comparable to sambar deer, which are quite sizable, also being very gracile, with other species having more standard antlers. Between the smallest of them, this is a size difference of an astounding 8 times, one of the biggest in any deer genus, and shows how endemism and living in insular environments can lead to quite different results. Candiacervus coexisted with a good amount of other animals, including both dwarf hippos and elephants, the separate Cretan deer, Cretan otter, and the large Cretan owl, which may well have preyed on them. Candiacervus unfortunately went extinct towards the end of the Pleistocene, around the start of the last glacial maximum some 21,500 years ago. It was thought that this occurred long before people ever reached the island, though more recent discoveries have brought this narrative into question. Humans do seem to have encountered living animals based on petroglyphs found in Aspendo Cave, which appears to depict their likeness, and so were likely done around this time or even earlier. Even older stone tools found on the island's southern coast, dating from around 130,000 years ago, match very closely to those made by Homo erectus, who may have arrived from northern Africa, and so coexisted with them for quite a long time. What is known for sure is that some remains from Candiacervus show that many individuals were suffering from forms of secondary hyperparathyroidism and metabolic bone disease, which are typical signs of severe nutritional deficiencies, and said weakenings of them likely came about from their environments on the islands changing rapidly to one rapidly colder and drier to what they were used to. Whatever the case, these animals were very interesting and further show how animal life can rapidly diversify when they arrive onto island environments, and what kinds of wacky directions and speciation events they can go down. All in all, I thank you for watching this video on these animals and that you may have learned something new. If you would like to see more from this channel, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And with that, I'll see you next time, whenever that may be.